Alright, so after getting about 45 hours into the game and finishing and completing the storyline, I do feel like I'm kind of reaching a point where I can finally make a decent review about everything that I went through in the game. I did go ahead and stream most of that, so that might still be on the channel. Link will be in the description if you're interested, but let's go ahead and get into the review. A lot to say. Definitely a lot to say. There's a lot of good things that I really did enjoy. And there's also a lot of negative things that kind of took the game in a sideways spot where I think things could have been improved a whole lot more over what we did end up getting. But let's go ahead and get into it. So definitely one of the more positive things that I think definitely continued from the previous game is the parkour / movement system. And the parkour system I thought was really good. I thought it was really fun. From my understanding, it is a slight improvement from before. What I would say is that they honestly gave you a lot of ways to maneuver throughout the world, and it's not just parkour. You know what I mean? The parkour is amazing, and I think it's really well done overall. But I do think that the glider addition is very good. I do think that the grappling hook, right? So you do have the glider, you do have the grappling hook, and both of those items are really, they add a whole new element to the game, a really good element to the game. It does come in at a much later time in the game, which I do think that it does take away from the overall game. Personally speaking, I feel like it does. Well, I think the first area where you're in with the bazaar, that should have been the area where we got both items, and then we kind of had the potential of upgrading it from there. I think that would have been a much better location for us to start out as. That's my personal opinion on that. I do think that we got it way too late, and it could have been incorporated a little bit more. Outside of that, though, it still is amazing. It's still pretty fresh. I enjoyed it a lot throughout the game. I never felt like that was boring in any way. There was certain times where, and I'm going to kind of talk about this later on with glitches too, where the servers kind of would start messing up, especially on co-op, where a lot of the time when you're doing co-op, it just kind of starts dropping out, and when you're trying to kind of maybe jump on a cellular tower or something like that, or on a windmill, it will start. It's like it doesn't catch that you're trying to grab onto things. That'll just make you fall, and all of a sudden, it's just going nowhere. So I do think that some of that did add on to it. I do think it's more of a server issue, though, over any sort of actual gameplay situation. The servers were just not great for co-op, and that continued throughout the game. I think the majority of my glitches, from what I could tell, were because of the co-op. From what I've seen online, many people are saying that there isn't that many when you're doing single player. Some are saying it's more on PC than it is on consoles. Overall, there was a lot of glitches, and if you're not, if your tolerance level is not very high for that, I would definitely skip out on this for a little bit until things get patched up. Absolutely. Outside of that, though, so we do, a game kind of gives you other options too as far as movement and fighting. It does give you the option of going in a more sneak mode as opposed to just go in blazing and just kind of start just hitting everything in sight. I personally thought that the sneaking was way too slow. I was not a big fan of it, especially towards the end. I would say mid to end game. You just become so powerful at that point that there really isn't a point for you to sneak. You can just go in there and just start hitting for the most part. If you're talking about some of the more armored, late tier zombies, the variants or whatever they're called, those, you can't really tank them. But for the most part, you can kill everything else fairly easily, even if there's a group. At least I felt like that. The sneaking kind of just took away from mostly everything. Most of the time, we just gunned and blazed throughout everything. It just felt like there was no need for the sneak. There is a lot of loot throughout the game, a lot of different variations of weapons, different styles of bows, and different general single-handed, two-handed weapons, different tiers. I think it's all good. I do think that the looting could have been a little bit stronger. It did feel like a lot of the weapons that were super strong, I got through simply buying through the store. as opposed to getting them from quests. So I do think that that is a total issue that could be fixed. I think looting does need to be a little bit more buffed, just to kind of add more to that experience overall, I would say. The game doesn't give you a lot of options to sell and buy, though. So, you're still able to get those good weapons regardless. And I found a good way to do that in there. You'll have multiple stores that you can do that with, and the one when you sleep, most of the time, everything refreshes, except for if it glitches or something like that. The repairing is another aspect that's in there. The only way for you to repair your weapon in this game is by modding it. So if you mod it at the beginning, you lose all potentiality of actually increasing the durability from as soon as it starts depreciating. There are certain mods that will increase that durability, or at least how much it depreciates over time. So there is that. But if you mod it right away, you will lose all potential of gaining any sort of durability back. And depending on the tier, the durability will be less and less and less. So the higher the tier, the more durability that you got. I thought it was fine. You just go through so many weapons, and as you level up, you go through so many tiers and strengths of weapons that even if you're able to repair those, at some point that weapon will become meaningless. So I felt like it was completely fine the way they had it. I think the weapons being more it's not being, none of them were really end game until you actually got to the end game. There was no super weapons that you could find, at least none that I found on there, and just me having to go through a bunch of weapons, I thought was pretty cool. The game kind of pushes you to try out as many weapons as possible, which overall good experience with that. I do think here is where the perks do overtake a little bit, though. The perks do tend to be a little bit more stronger with how you handle the zombies over weapons. We'll talk about items in a bit, but as far as how perks work, there are certain ones that are just extremely, extremely disgustingly strong. Especially the kick that you can do. You can just send people flying most of the time. If they hit a wall, that's extra damage, and if you have the head stomp, that's even more damage. Most of the time, you'll be able to kill most people and zombies with just one kick and then one stomp to the head. So it's kind of it's an interesting side by side. I do think that the perks do overtake the weapons at certain points. They're free. It doesn't cost you anything to kick something. So overall, the perks do become very reliable, and also you start relying on them too much. I think maybe a buff to the weapons would be good, but honestly, by the end of it, you basically become a god. Like you're killing everything in sight fairly quickly, fairly easily. So I think it accomplishes that. I don't think it needs to be more than that. I enjoyed it. I don't think any sort of nerfing needs to happen to the perks. I think if anything, beefing up the weapons is a good item. Now, items are also really, really good options too, especially if you're dealing with groups of zombies. C4s, Molotovs, all of those are super amazing options for you to deal with zombies, to try to gain the upper hand on groups of zombies. And by the end of the game, the especially Molotovs, for me, they were doing hundreds of damage. And they last for a while, and their radius is huge. So a lot of the time, it's a really, really, really good way to take out a group of zombies all at once. Doesn't quite work that fast, but it really does help, especially when you have the late tier items. And there's other ones too, but those are the ones that stood out for me. I never really use any of the decoy stuff, but it is there for you to use for sure. Now, something else that kind of I thought was interesting was the timer when it became night. During that time, it does add a whole new section of the time, or it does add a whole new level to being at night. Mainly in that you kind of don't have the option of just staying outside all the time. Okay, so once it's night, you still need UV rays to actually be able to stick out. Otherwise, a meter will start building up, and there's a point that it'll hit, and depending on how many inhibitors you got, it will kind of start counting down. If you got more, that timer will get bigger. By the end of the game, it was about 9 minutes for me. So 9 minutes I could last without UV rays, and otherwise, basically, you start getting damaged. and I guess, you just die. The game assumes that you turn into a zombie, right? Interesting. I thought it was pretty cool. I didn't have a problem with it. So overall, I enjoyed that. I think so. And it's fairly easy to get to UV rays, and you have options on you as well to get to that, to fill it back up. So I just thought it was another cool thing to have on there. Now I do want to talk about the negatives, okay? Because there's a lot. There's a lot of negatives. I'm gonna start out with bugs and glitches. At a certain point, it became where anytime I was playing, I was gonna hit a glitch. Anytime there's gonna be a glitch in there, and it's gonna ruin half the whatever we're doing. It's kind of take you out of the immersion in general, right? You're walking around, and all of a sudden you can't get through a door, right? Or for me, I was fighting one of the bosses. They happened to jump, and they just died, right? And I mean, the bosses are already really, really stupid. Stupid easy. Stupid easy. So for that to happen, it just kind of ruins the game a little bit further. And I'm going to try to show that sometimes the bosses will literally just introduce themselves, and you automatically can just go in there, and you'll be able to attack them so quick that they just die immediately. So, for glitches to get added on top of that, it really just kind of destroys what they're trying to build, personally speaking. As far as the stamina bar that we got, I thought the stamina was not a very good put out idea. Overall, I think the stamina bar was not very. It's not a very flushed out system, personally. At least not at the beginning. At the beginning, it was almost impossible for you to do most actions. And I kind of understand, you want to be able to build up your character and whatnot. And you want to be able to kind of feel that leveling up. But when you're talking about a character that's been doing parkour, that's been doing a lot of actions already, for them to kind of be barely able to climb a couple of things, it's kind of silly. It really doesn't make sense. I think there's a better way that we could have handled that. But towards the end of the game, especially towards the middle to the end of the game, it becomes fairly easy to do most of that. You get so much stamina at that point that the bar doesn't really even matter, even when you're attacking. A couple swings in the beginning, and you basically run dry. Whereas over here, it's you can just keep going, especially when you get better armor. So I think that was one thing that I think I don't really have a better option for how to fix that, but I think it could be done better. Possibly maybe increase it a little bit at the beginning. Intensity of nights, there's really no rush, to be honest. At the beginning, it was like, oh my god, like this is the worst thing that you could do out here. You're gonna die immediately. That's what it felt like. But then once you actually step out, it's really easy to evade most zombies, especially when you get to the chase tier and whatnot. I thought the chase tier was a joke for the first 3 levels. I think maybe by the 4th level, it does get a little bit tougher. But by the time it takes you to actually get to that level, it almost becomes meaningless. It takes so long for you to do that. And I think that needs to be added a bit more. More zombies on the rooftops, especially the more, agile zombies. There needs to be more on that. Variants, maybe even. You really don't see variants as far as maybe I just didn't. Maybe the game was glitched. Could be a thing. But maybe there was more zombies out there and I just didn't see. But there needs to be more variants, more of those armored types, the variant ones. Those need to be out in the open. They don't show up till level 4 half the time. So I think there needs to be a lot of additions to that. But I think I know why. I do think I know why that took such a big hit in this. I think it's because of the story. Okay, and this is where I'm going to get into a little bit of spoilers. But before I even get into that, I'm just going to say the story is not good. So if all you want to hear is what I think about the story was not that good. I did not enjoy it. I think it was very, very poorly written. A lot of the characters don't really connect in any meaningful way. Okay, that's my quick opinion about that. I do want to talk about it a little bit more in depth. So I'm gonna just make a disclaimer, spoilers from here. So if you care about story stuff, don't listen to the rest of this. So basically, as far as the story goes, I thought it sucked. I thought it sucked dick, to be honest with you. I think they did not do a lot of things. They did not explain a lot of things. A lot of the characters did not really connect properly. Like you have a lot of characters that just kind of, it just feels like you're going from character to character, and they're throwing as much dialogue at you as possible in the hopes that there would be a story there for you to grasp. And I do think there are some characters that I really did enjoy. I did like the twist of Luan and Hakan, for instance. I like that twist. Was it written well towards the end? No. Him just suddenly changing to be fully bad and then fully good again. Yeah, and you know what I mean? It did not make sense. Walt's character, him just kind of, why does he want to kill the whole city? I didn't get it. I'm sure there's an answer. I didn't get it from playing the game. I don't know why he wanted to blow up the whole city. I don't know how that would have helped Mia. I don't get why we did all that. Why didn't he just communicate at the beginning? Because he kind of goes from I want to kill you to oh my god it's Aiden to fuck you, I'm gonna kill you, and it's like the fuck, you know what I mean? Like give me some sort of standardization with how you want to run the story. Okay. I like the bizarre side of things. I very much enjoyed that. Some of the characters in there, some of the stories in there. But there was always a point where it's just like, it almost feels like it's meaningless. Okay? It feels like some of the stories were just phoned in on there, personally speaking. I heard some people kind of talk about how, some of the voice actors weren't good or something. I didn't feel that. I enjoyed the voice actors overall. I didn't have any choice. Not any choice. I didn't have any problem with any of them. I thought it was okay. It served the purpose, and I think most of them did a really good job. I didn't like our character. I thought he was very bland, very boring. Just wasn't very well rounded overall. A lot of the choices that you make in the game, they make you feel like it's a big deal, whereas in reality, it really isn't. And it's more of a couple of choices that really affect everything. That I kind of fucking hate. That I think that if you're gonna make it seem like the big choice is gonna be there, let's get those big choices to actually matter. Now, I think that's also what I was talking about a little bit before with zombies. I think the zombies are almost always a forgettable aspect of the game for the story writers. It just felt like they wanted to write a really good story, but they almost didn't know how, and they kind of half-assed the incorporation into a zombie world. At least that's what I felt on there. I didn't really enjoy that. But like I said at the beginning, I didn't really go into it with the expectation of the game to be in any way possible an amazing storyline. I went in to play it co-op. I went in to enjoy it with my friends. So if that's you, if that's what you're playing it for, I think it might be worth it for you. If maybe waiting for a discount is good, maybe waiting for a couple updates is good, but if you're just kind of solo it, or this is just kind of a if you're gonna be buying other games, right, and you don't really buy that many games, this is not the one for you. I'll just say that up front. It is really not. There's a lot of issues. There's a lot of things that are not fun about it. I would wait for like a year or two. See if you can get it for like $20 later. It's not worth. It's not worth it all, I would say. Especially for the solo play. It's just my personal opinion is just wait up, hold up on it, and then come back to it later on. But yeah, that's honestly everything that I have to say about the game. If you enjoyed, please go ahead and leave a like, and if you have any sort of disagreements or something you want to add on to it, please definitely give us a comment on it. We do also have, again, our Twitch channel right on the in the description. If you feel like dropping a follow for future games, we're definitely going to be doing other ones for sure. So definitely hope you enjoyed. You have a good one.
The missile strikes. It's already too late. Too late? The city had its chance, Aiden, years ago, before my work was destroyed. Many have died, but more will be saved.
What? What the hell are you talking about?
Why are you chasing me, Aiden? What do you want?
I promised Mia.
Promise what? Why do you keep pretending you don't know the truth? Focus, Aiden. Try to remember.